we wanted to make the absolute best upland hunting boot on the market. We thought that was something that was kind of lacking as far as the boot world. There wasn't really anything that, like, there was a lot of boots that would work and they would probably do a really good job, but there was nothing that was like the perfect upland hunting boot. So for us to build that boot, we already had a couple ideas. So we get on the phone with the Italians and their R&D team, and we kind of tell them exactly what we think needs to be on the boot, and they go back to the drawing table and create a couple different designs, and we kind of just go back and forth a little bit until we think that we have what we want, and they send us over a couple samples. We usually test it for a year or 2 years.
Hey everyone, Nick Larson here, host of the Birdshot Podcast, the show where we go beyond the flush to explore the full upland hunting experience with guests from all across the uplands, from shotguns to bird dogs to habitat and conservation, and the traditions that connect all of us to a life afield. The Birdshot Podcast is presented by Onyx Hunt and supported by folks just like you via our Patreon community. If you want to stay up to date and not miss any of our upcoming episodes, be sure to subscribe and follow the show in your podcast player or YouTube, wherever you're listening or watching today. Go ahead and tap that button. Thank you for doing so. And with that said, let's get into today's conversation on the Birdshot Podcast. All right, Lars, welcome to the Birdshot Podcast. Thanks for joining me today, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. We're super excited to be on.
I like to think about this. We are recording this on July 9th, so we have officially rounded the bend after the 4th of July. I like to think it's sort of all downhill from here, thinking about hunting season and fall.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's all that's been on my mind recently. Even going up pitching, I'm like, man, I wonder if there's birds up there.
Heck yeah. Well, we're gonna talk plenty of hunting today, and specifically boots. We got Lars Anderson from Crispi USA with us today on the podcast. Conversation I've been looking forward to. We're gonna get into that for sure. But what kind of trouble you get up to in the summer? What keeps you busy this time of year?
Man, this time of year, all I'm doing really is fly fishing. From the end of trucker season, February 15th, up until September 1st. Every weekend, I'm either fly fishing or out on the boat somewhere.
It looks like you're maybe at Crispi USA HQ there. Where are you guys located?
Yeah, so we're based out of Utah, just south of Salt Lake City here in Linden. So everything for North America comes directly here, right here at HQ.
Okay, cool. Well, before we get too much further, why don't you give us just a little background on your role at Crispi and Crispi USA in general?
Yeah, so I've been with Crispi now for just about 5 years. I am the customer service dealer relations manager over here. So I manage all of our customer service team, do a bunch of dealer stuff. One really cool thing about Crispi too is we're a little bit of a smaller company, so we all kind of have a say in everything. So we all have a say in a little bit of product design, kind of wear a bunch of different hats here at Crispi. So it makes it super fun, makes it really enjoyable. Love coming to work every day, especially working for a company like Crispi where I stand behind every product that we sell, and I really truly think that we are the best boots out there.
Yeah. It's a small world when it comes to, I feel like, the outdoor industry and manufacturers and that sort of thing. Now, you have a sort of a unique position that is very intriguing to me, as I also work with an Italian manufacturer. And I'm kind of curious a little bit, what is the relationship like between Crispi USA and the Italian outfit?
Oh, it is fantastic. We have a stellar relationship with Italy. So Mark, he's our president over here at Crispi, and Federico is the president of Crispi International. They have a fantastic relationship. We try our best to keep up with them, and they absolutely do their best to keep up with us. So it works really well. We try to go over there once, twice a year just to make sure everything's in order. But the relationships are fantastic. I mean, we get on calls with them all the time, and just Mark and Fetty's relationship in general is stellar. Like, they're almost best friends at this point.
Are there contacts over there that are English speaking? You're kind of doing that kind of thing, or are you using WhatsApp and translation? Because we do a little bit of everything, really.
So most of the people over there do speak English. There's a few factory workers that only speak Italian, and then Alessandro, he's the actual founder of Crispi. He's the one who started in 1975. He doesn't speak a lick English, so he's either using Google Translate or his son Federico to translate over. But he's a stud. He's 81 years old. He's still in the factory every single day, looking at leather, making sure everything's rolling perfect.
Wow, that's really cool. That's very somewhat similar in RFM, the Italian gun maker that we work with at Upland Gun Company. They're the head gun maker. I mean, we're getting better and better, and we use a lot of the digital tools that translate in WhatsApp that really make our business possible. But I've said it many times on the show before. I didn't know it going into it, but that working with the Italians and the manufacturers has been one of the most enjoyable, fun components of doing that kind of work and really bringing these products over here for U.S. outdoor enthusiasts, consumers, that sort of thing. So we have that in common, buddy.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Have you been to Italy?
I haven't yet. I'm planning on going over there in November. We're taking a bunch of us here in the office, and we're all headed over there. It's our 50th anniversary this year. So,
oh, wow.
So we're going over there for that. Yeah, we're pretty excited about that. 50 years of making Italian hunting footwear.
November, though, that's a tough time to leave here.
I know. That is the only tricky part, especially it's like full swing checker hunts, but I think it'll be worth it.
I'm sure it will. That's another thing we have in common. I have yet to make the trek over to Italy. I've been there once on a personal trip a long time ago for my honeymoon, actually, but I need to get over there, and I'm always kind of coming up with reasons. Well, it's November, it's hunting season, and I've got to pick a time and go at this point. So that's high on my priority list as well. But yeah, I'm sure you'll have a blast. And 50 years of making boots, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. We're super excited about that. We're actually coming out with a new 50th anniversary boot. We're only bringing in 100 of them, and those should be out next month or two.
So are those already pre-sold? How are you distributing those?
They're not pre-sold. I think that they're just going to be like a super limited drop on the website to where it's like first come, first serve.
Wow, I have to imagine those are going to go like in seconds.
I would assume so. They're pretty sweet looking.
That's not many pairs of boots, 100.
Nope.
Yeah. What do you know about the we could probably do a whole separate conversation on this, but like just sort of the origin, like where the Crispi origin story, and then when did they start coming over to the US?
Yeah, so Alessandro is the original founder of Crispi. He basically started building boots out of his garage, more like specialty boots. And he was just making them for like certain people. And he created his own last that were completely different than all of the other boot manufacturers that were extremely comfortable. And one thing that he was kind of known for is a little bit narrower heel pocket to make sure your heel's not slipping, and a little bit wider forefoot for your foot to naturally display. And that was something that nobody had really ever done before. So that's kind of how things started, and they started growing from there. It's pretty cool. They've had boots all across the globe. They've got boots that have been up to Everest, and kind of boots for just about everything in the world, from military law enforcement to hunting to Everest, and even everyday footwear.
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, we're approaching this from a hunting perspective, which, again, boots are something that I put some thought into, but I guess I've been wearing my Crispi boots now for three or 4 years and really, really like them. Prior to that, it was sort of just a mishmash of different boots. It wasn't something that I really highly prioritized, and I'm a grouse hunter in the Midwest. We don't hunt the most extreme conditions. Certainly you don't think of like a mountaineering boot, but I guess slowly but surely sort of getting exposure to the boots and seeing some of my friends wear them, and at some point, the scales tip, and I just, I'm going to give these things a try, see what they're all about. And it was kind of one of those light bulb moments where like, oh, okay, I get it now. I really, really like this. I've been running the Laponias, and I've got a couple pairs of them. We'll get into some of the different types of boots and styles that upland hunters would be interested in. But was it the mountaineering side of things? Is that really like the origination? Because again, they're so, you can use them for all sorts of different applications, and they've obviously made a splash in the hunting world. But what's the true inspiration for them?
I mean, the true inspiration behind Crispi is hunting footwear. I mean, bird hunting over in Italy, as you probably know, that's a big lifestyle over there. And culturally, like, expensive hunting boots they're kind of like basketball shoes here in the U.S. Everyone wants like the newest, greatest, coolest thing, and that's kind of how it was for a little bit wealthier people in Italy in the earlier times of Crispi. So I mean, it's truly a hunting boot company. That's what everything started with.
Okay. That is not something I would have assumed. I wouldn't have known that, but that kind of makes me like them even more now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I hear about that all the time, that they're hiking the mountains and chasing European woodcock, and they do their bird hunting, and it's definitely a different style. We always are kind of sort of laughing at like not laughing, but paying attention to the difference in preferences for like the Italian woodcock gun. They like a really sort of lightweight over under, maybe with sling swivels on them, something they can hike up the mountain with and shoot. Short barrels, not totally unlike a woodcock gun here, but our customers obviously have a little bit different preferences. And when you work with an Italian manufacturer, you see some of those cultural differences and just the different applications. Obviously, there's more than one way to skin a cat, but it's kind of funny to see just sort of our taste versus European taste, that sort of thing. But the cool thing is, a product like this, you can apply it to your own pursuits however you choose to do so.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that make a Crispi boot a Crispi boot? Like, what really sets them apart? And I want to talk about sort of ankle support, the flexion system, all of that sort of stuff. And you got a whole line of boots. So if we need to sort of stay focused on some of the boots that the upland hunters would be wearing, we can definitely do that.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I think the biggest thing with our boots is the overall quality. I mean, the quality of materials that we're using, all the leathers, the synthetics, from outsoles to Gore Tex liners, all the materials that we're using and how we're putting them together is really what makes the boot such a solid boot. I mean, we're using the highest quality materials, and that's what's going to make your boot extremely durable. It's going to make your feet so they're dry throughout the entire life of that boot. And just the Vibram outsoles is what we found to be the absolute best outsole on the market. And we have proprietary outsoles with Vibram that use Vibram Mega Grip rubber compound that provide the absolute best grip on the market, whether you're in slippery terrain, on ice, on rocks, up in the Checker Hills, or chasing grouse up in the woods.
Okay. So, and Vibram, I'm glad you mentioned that. That's kind of one that it's almost ubiquitous at this point. I imagine they probably have a pair of boots, whether they're Crispi or not, that have a Vibram sole. What makes Vibram? Is it just the quality of the rubber that they use?
You have just the quality of the rubber that they use. And I mean, they've been in the market for such a long time that they have what we found to be the most knowledgeable and have the best product, and those rubber compounds and being able to make proprietary outsoles the only we can use here at Crispi has really made the difference there.
Okay. So not all Vibram soles are the same. Like, I guess from the consumer's perspective, I'll just say personally, like I feel like I'm sort of trained to, when I see a Vibram sole, like, okay, that's got a good quality sole. But beyond that, I don't really have much knowledge. So
yeah,
a Vibram sole is a good quality sole, but you guys take that a step further and you have your own proprietary soles that Vibram makes for you.
Yes, sir, absolutely. So some outsoles are going to be a little bit harder rubber compound, which they might last a little bit longer, but they're not going to be quite as grippy. We have a brand new outsole called the Full Control. It's made in collaboration with Vibram, but proprietary to us. That one is extremely unique because it uses that softer rubber compound. So when it gets wet, it actually becomes a little bit more tacky. And it's just a little bit softer, so it's going to wrap around those rocks, just give you a little bit better grip overall. And one super cool thing about that outsole as well is it has directional lug pattern. So on the interior side of the sole, it has a little bit different shape to it for all of your downhill descents. And on the exterior, it has the opposite direction. So it's directional lug pattern for all your uphill ascents. And we've done that specifically for hunting. And it's on the interior and exterior because most of the time hunting, you're going to be side hilling. You're never really going to be on a trail. Like, you're always going to be off trail.
Yep. Got it. Is Vibram a international company?
They are. Yep.
Do you know what country of origin? I have no idea. We could look it up, but
I don't know the exact country of origin. They have a factory over in Italy, and that's where we design all of our soles. But I'm not too sure exactly where they're actually being manufactured.
I hadn't thought about this until now, surprisingly, because it's sort of a daily topic of conversation for us at Upland Gun Company. What's the tariff status? I mean, I'm well aware, but how is it affecting you guys, and how are you handling it at this point from what you can share with us?
Yeah, it's definitely affecting us. I mean, as you probably know, it's probably affecting you guys as well. We're kind of just waiting to see what happens. It's supposed to actually clarify today and see what's actually going on with it, but it's been a little bit weird over here. I mean, we've never really talked tariffs throughout my entire life, and then all of a sudden we got hit with them. So it's been definitely a topic of conversation, but hopefully we'll have that resolution today, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, same here. Not something I thought a lot about until about April of this year, when it has a direct impact on the business. That's for sure. Actually, so we're recording this on July 9th, and to your point, this was sort of an impending deadline. Really, as of yesterday, I think that got kicked out to August 1st now, which is kind of in the story all along, is that when the tariffs hit in April, really since then, there's been a number of these sort of impending deadlines that are continually being kicked out. And so it sounds like August 1st might be the last one of those, but like you, we're kind of waiting to see. We've obviously we've brought in some shipments of shotguns since then. And so we have had to adapt our practices and obviously do a lot of communication with customers to figure out how we handle that. So we have a system that we're operating with right now, but we are waiting for that day, if it ever comes, that day where we have some long-term clarity and we can make some real adjustments to whether it's pricing or whatever we need to do to make the business effective in this new operating environment and conditions. But yeah, so for you guys, and again, I don't mean to pry, like you don't have to share anything that you don't want to, but would you pretty much already have most of your inventory in country for this fall, or not necessarily?
Nope.
Okay.
We have about half, I would say.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, so there's real impacts that are still on the line for you guys.
Yep, absolutely. We're getting containers pretty frequently still.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, that's TBD for both us in our roles, but also the listeners. That those tariff impacts will be continuing to take shape and roll out. Hopefully, keep our fingers crossed. Maybe they can strike a deal. That'd be good.
Yeah, that's what we're all hoping for.
Yeah, exactly. Well, keep my fingers crossed with you, buddy. Okay, so what is the feedback loop? You mentioned you guys have a great relationship with the Italian manufacturer. Do you have any real structured processes, or what is the feedback loop for, hey, we're seeing a bunch of upland hunters using our boots and they really need something like this? Obviously, we'll talk about the new upland boot, but what is the feedback loop, the R&D like with the manufacturing? How do you guys, pass that up the chain, if you will?
So that's one thing that's really cool about our relationship with Italy is we basically had this idea. We wanted to make the absolute best upland hunting boot on the market. We thought that was something that was kind of lacking as far as the boot world. There wasn't really anything that, like, there was a lot of boots that would work and they would probably do a really good job, but there was nothing that was like the perfect upland hunting boot. So for us to build that boot, we already had a couple ideas. So we get on the phone with the Italians and their R&D team, and we kind of tell them exactly what we think needs to be on the boot. And they go back to the drawing table and create a couple different designs. And we kind of just go back and forth a little bit until we think that we have what we want. And they send us over a couple samples. We usually test it for a year or 2 years on multiple people's feet, make sure it's everything that we wanted in that boot, and make sure it meets all the expectations. And then usually if it meets all the expectations, it passes all QC, everybody likes it, then we'll bring it into production.
Got it. Okay. All right. We're going to talk about the upland boot, but I'm recalling now, kind of derailed us there talking about tariffs, but we were talking about what makes the Crispi boots a Crispi boot, which is the outsole, Vibram. We talked about that quite a bit. What else about sort of fit, the flexion system? I want to talk about that, and then ankle support and some of the stuff you guys do around that as well.
Yeah. So we have a unique thing at Crispi that nobody else has. It's called ABSS, which stands for Ankle Bone Support System. And it's basically a memory foam-like material that's going to wrap completely around your ankle bones. So as soon as you tighten up those top 3 eyelets, it's going to conform to the exact shape of your ankle bones and give you significantly more support there. So that's one thing that it's only certain of our boots have that ankle bone support system just because it does add weight. And some people don't need the ankle bone support system, so they go away from that. And then I've kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, but we use Gore Tex liners in all of our boots. We have found that Gore Tex is the absolute best waterproof membrane on the market. And we integrate all of our insulated boots with Gore Tex Duratherm insulation. So it's still going to be extremely breathable because there's not a layer of waterproof membrane and then a layer of insulation. It's all combined into one. So it actually helps that breathability aspect, even if it's in an 800-gram insulate boot. Gore-Tex liners are also guaranteed for the life of the boot, so they all stand behind their product as well. So even if it's past our 1-year manufacturer defect warranty, it's still guaranteed for the life of the boot. There is a life of a boot, unfortunately. Some people, their boots have thousands of miles on them, and they send them in, and they're barely holding on. But but for the most part, Gore-Tex does do a really good job of getting people taken care of if the boot didn't meet the life expectancy.
Yeah. I know. I've never done that myself personally, but I do know people that have sent boots into Gore-Tex and had them replaced or, I think usually replaced, but I know that they do that. So that's a good feature. So I was not aware, and I don't think about this a lot because I have pretty much found that I don't have a huge need for insulated boots. Upland hunting is such an active sport. I kind of I'll change my socks a little bit, but I've been running my Laponias late into the season and not having a whole lot of issue with cold toes, that kind of thing. But I'm not sitting on the side of a hill glassing and doing that kind of stuff either. But I was not aware that Gore-Tex had their own waterproof insulation layer as well. So when you guys have insulated boots, it's a 1-piece layer, all Gore-Tex.
Yep. So it's basically like a layering system in that Gore-Tex and how it's manufactured. So you have the waterproof membrane, and then you have your insulation factor, and then you have the outer layer, which is kind of your protection layer for that Gore-Tex liner. And then that's what sits inside the boot. So every time you slip your foot inside the boot, it's basically like putting your foot into a little wader. So it is 100% waterproof.
Flex system. Let's talk about that, because I was, again, as somebody that had never worn a boot like this before, I went into it thinking, all right, I don't do a lot of elevation, a lot of hill climbing. I want a boot that's flexible. I was looking for a really lightweight, flexible boot. That's how I landed on the Laponias, and they really exceeded my expectations in ways that I did not foresee, because I thought I was buying a boot for a very specific purpose, and they like immediately became my daily driver. For the reasons we've been discussing here. But talk about that flex system.
Yeah, so our flex system, a lot of other boot manufacturers have that now. However, we actually invented the boot flex system, and a lot of other people's boot flex system doesn't really make sense, because with our boot flex system, we board last all of our boots. So a lot of people talk about shanks, and we don't use any shanks. We use something called a board last, which is basically the same shape of your foot. And goes throughout the whole footbed of the boot. And what we're able to do is shim that down right underneath the ball of the foot to create that flex point. So whether you're in a 1 flex or a 5 flex, that boot will only flex right underneath the ball of your foot. And what that's going to do is give you significantly more support throughout the toes, as well as from the metatarsal bone all the way back to the heel. That's going to be supported no matter what, if you're in a 1 flex or a 5 flex. But we basically created that system because a lot of people were just like a little bit confused, like, oh, is this boot stiff? Is this boot not as stiff? And do I need a stiff boot? So a basic rule of thumb is if you're in extremely technical terrain, then you want to go to a little bit stiffer boot. Or if you have a heavy load on your back, if you're in a little bit more mild terrain, or you're stalking a little bit more, then that's when you go to a little bit less flex, which would be like a 1.
More flex?
Yes. Yep. Like more flexible. Mm-hmm. And then if you kind of want a boot that's good for just about anything, whether you're in the North Woods chasing grouse or you're chasing elk here in Utah, that 3 flex would probably be like the best do it all.
Okay. And so again, just in case people are like I was, really had never even thought about it. That support, that flex, or if it was an old boot and it was like a shank, you're looking to kind of get that extra spring in your step. Is that kind of what it's for, or is it really for like jagged, rocky terrain? Like what's the underlying concept of why you would want that stiffness in the bottom of the boot?
Yeah, so there's a few different things that board last is going to help with. Without that board last, you would have a lot of feel underneath your foot. So if you're stepping on pebbles, rocks, you're going to feel every single bit of that.
Yeah.
And the other thing is it's actually supporting all of those little bones in your feet on that like 5 flex down to the 1 flex. It's still going to support that footbed. But when you do get into a little bit more technical terrain, you're putting a lot more stress on your foot, especially going up steep inclines, side hilling. You're putting a lot more stress on all those little bones and all those little fine muscles in your foot. So when you go up in flex, up in stiffness, then it's going to give that little bit more support so your feet doesn't have to work nearly as hard. So you put most of that pressure, instead of being on your feet and your little fine muscles in your feet, it goes up to your calves and your thighs.
Yeah. So it's more kind of like efficiency of movement. You're not losing energy through the bottom of the boot as it's moving around and kind of squishy.
Yep, absolutely.
Underneath your feet. Yeah.
But if you're in a cornfield chasing pheasants, you probably don't need a 5 flex boot. I mean, you're not going to be putting that much stress on your feet to the point where you're going to be walking on 2x4s.
Yep. I think that really was the thing that I noticed the most, because I'd gotten into this sort of pattern of wearing. We had a couple of really wet years here in the grouse woods, and so I was wearing like knee-high rubber boots, and I have a pair that I really, really like. They're unfortunately no longer available, but Gumleaf boots. They're a European-made boot, and compared to some of the other knee-high rubber boots, they actually have a pretty streamlined foot profile, maybe a kind of a European thing, but they're not like big clunky boots. They're nice knee-high rubber boots, and I was wearing those a lot because I liked a lot about them. But when I switched to the Laponia, the Crispi Laponia, I quickly realized how much energy loss and efficiency I was lacking in those, because there's really just a slip-on boot. You know, they have a nice tapered fit, but you're not locking them down, and they have no lacing system or anything. So it was kind of eye-opening to me of just how much I had sort of slipped into wearing those and was kind of tolerating the energy loss and lack of efficiency. And that was what I noticed the most about my Laponias and the lacing system. I've never had a boot that you can really fine tune the lacing like that. You've got the lower portion and you can kind of lock in, and maybe you could talk about that. But that was a big game changer for me. I feel like in just not knowing that there were boots that could kind of solve that problem for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that fitment that you're kind of talking about, specifically in that Laponia, that has something called the asymmetrical lacing system. And that's kind of why it wraps around the contours of your foot and goes down the tip of the toe. So you can really customize the fit of that boot. Whether you have a really narrow foot in the toe box or you have a really wide foot, you're able to expand it and customize it to the kind of the exact shape of your foot.
Is that maybe not in every boot, while there are other boots that don't have that lacing system?
Yeah, so it's not in every boot. It's only in a specific few boots. You really don't need it in all your boots, but if you like a little bit more technical fitting boot, that's when I would suggest somebody to go look at something with the asymmetrical lacing system, such as the Brickstall series, the Alpine series, or the Laponia series. All of those boots will have that asymmetrical lacing system, but they are just a little bit more technical fitting.
Okay. And again, probably not at the top of the priority list for maybe grouse hunter, pheasant hunter, that kind of thing, but I got it. And I just know that I get a nice sort of lace down fit with them. I'm not really tweaking it a whole lot, but it's a good lacing system. I'll say that.
Yeah.
The other thing I will say is that, so what flex rating do the Laponias have? Is it like a 1 something?
Laponias are a 2 flex.
Okay. They're a 2. All right. So when I got those, I knew I had no reference point. I knew that they were a more flexible boot relative to the Crispi line. But when I got them, I was still kind of surprised at the stiffness, because again, what I was coming from, I had not worn a boot with that stiff of a bottom, but I quickly learned to appreciate it and have gone on wearing those. What flex is the new Upland boot?
So the new Upland boot is going to be a 2 flex as well.
Okay, so that would be a very similar flex.
Yeah, because most of our Upland guys, they're not chucker hunters. Most of us are either hunting fields, prairie lands, or the grouse woods, where you're really not in super technical terrain, but you do still need a little bit of added support underneath the footbed, because sometimes you may be doing 15, 20-mile days. So on those, once you get past 10 miles is when your feet really start to feel it. And just having that 2 flex board last underneath the foot really helps with that foot fatigue. And I really haven't got much foot fatigue in that Upland Pro. It's an extremely comfortable boot. It's extremely lightweight. And I think that 2 flex is just perfect for most of our Upland guys.
Yeah, I don't have anything to compare it to other than wearing a boot with that 2 flex for the last 3 years. But again, it kind of quickly won me over, and that's all I've worn ever since then, basically. So I'm definitely looking. I don't have a pair of the Upland ones yet, but I'm pretty curious about trying those this fall. So I might have to do that. You guys also came out with a new color in the Laponias, and you called it hazelnut. So I don't know if you're just trying to sell more boots to grouse hunters, but I almost have to have a pair of those too.
Nope. Actually, Italy came out with that colorway.
Really?
Yep, it's a color directly from the factory.
That's awesome. All right, so let's kind of diverge here and tell me a little bit about the Upland boot. What makes it unique? What sets it apart from some of the other boots in the Crispi line, and why would listeners be interested in checking that out this fall?
This boot is specifically designed for Upland hunters. From the outsole to the midsole to the leather that we used, everything about that boot is designed for the Upland hunter. Starting with the sole, we use the Vibram Mega Grip outsole, which is proprietary to us, kind of like we talked about a little bit earlier. Okay. It's an extremely grippy outsole, but it also sheds the mud really, really well. And then we went with an EVA foam midsole on that model to maintain that it's extremely lightweight. So that EVA foam is going to be a little bit softer underneath the footbed, and it's going to be a lot lighter than, say, a polyurethane midsole. And then we went with that 2 flex board last. So that 2 flex on that boot, like we kind of talked about a little bit earlier, it's going to be extremely comfortable for the long days. It can absolutely bring you into a little bit more technical terrain as well. I mean, I'd use that boot in Nevada, Utah, and Idaho chasing chuckers and huns, and it performed really, really well. My feet did have to work a little bit more, especially when I was in Utah, when I'm in a little bit more technical terrain, but it still performed flawlessly and was extremely comfortable. Then we went with the grease nubuck leather. So that grease nubuck leather is going to be a little bit thinner than your standard nubuck, and it's going to breathe a little bit better, but still have extremely good wear. It's going to be very, very durable. And then we went with a little bit of protection on that boot, and we just did a toe cap rand. If you look at all of our other models, you'll see that they have a full rubber rand, but we decided that to save some weight on this boot, we just want to do a toe cap rand, because most of us Upland guys were not in really rocky terrain. So the interior of your boot isn't really getting hammered, but the toe cap is, because the grassland that we're walking through, or the grouse woods, that's really what's taking the beating, is the front of that boot. So we went with that toe cap rand just to take up some of that beating and protect the upper portion of that leather to give you more longevity of the boot. If you go online and you take a look at that Upland Pro, you'll notice that there's not really any seams whatsoever on that boot in any of the high wear points. One thing that I've found, and a lot of the other Upland guys have found, is that seams for Upland guys are always the first thing to go, because when we're walking through the grasslands, all those little grasses are like little razor blades. So even though we use a Kevlar stitch in all of our stitched boots, if you hit that for 150 days in the field and a little knife is cutting it every single time, I mean, it's going to wear out over time. So we've tried to eliminate any seam point on that boot in the wear areas.
I'm looking at a picture of it now. Basically smooth sides, totally flat, and like everything is kind of built, which, you know, maybe you guys do this for most of your boots, but it looks like, you know, it's made for forward motion, obviously, where all the seams are kind of like they're towards the back. So Absolutely. Everything is going to brush off to the sides.
Mm-hmm. So that's why we've done that, is because the seams are that fail point, and we basically eliminated those. And then it is an all leather construction. So throughout the upper, even the tongue, it is going to be an all leather construction. And that's because in our synthetic boots, a lot of the times, like foxtails, cactus, anything like that can kind of work its way through that Gore Tex membrane and end up causing a leak, but it's a lot harder for it to work through leather. And that's the last thing that we wanted, was a boot leaking on a guy for spending a lot of days in the field. So we went with that all leather upper construction, and it still will be pretty durable. Maybe not as durable as your Laponia, or maybe not as breathable as your Laponia, but the durability factor is going to be significantly more.
Okay, so I'm just looking at a couple of the other. So it's a 9-inch boot, whereas I think my Laponias are 8 inches.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and when I got those, I was like, is that the tall enough boot? Not having a ton of reference, but I haven't had any issues with that.
Yeah.
My brush pants come down far enough, but I'll take the extra inch. That's fine. They looks like they're coming in at 1 pound, 1.5 pounds per boot. Do you know how that compares directly to the Laponia? I don't have those pulled up here.
It is actually the same exact weight.
Same weight. All right. So, and I think a lot of upland hunters were wearing the Laponias prior, and maybe you guys kind of took that into consideration.
Sorry, it's actually 2 ounces heavier per boot. Which,
2 ounces heavier.
Yep,
okay.
Yep. Sorry, I got that wrong. I was thinking of a different model, but it is 2 ounces heavier. But that's a very minor difference.
It's very close
for having it be an all leather upper construction, being a little bit thicker, and rubber toe cap Rand.
Yeah. On the toe cap and the full, because like the full rubber Rand, that's really, if you're looking at Crispi boots or boots from another manufacturer that are of that same style, that's really, it kind of defines the boot. Really, it's like, wow, they have this full rubber Rand, and again, not something that I had really considered, but you're shaving weight but that is really for durability, for rocks and stuff coming into the side.
Yep, most certainly. Yep, that's going to be there for. That's really all a Rand is there for. It's just long-term durability. Like, a lot of people think that once their Rand starts to peel, or if it gets a cut in it, then people are like, "Oh, my boots are going to leak now." But it's really just there to protect the upper of that boot.
It's like an extra layer of protection on there.
Yep.
Okay. Tell me what's going on the back of the boot, if anything. Obviously, you got a little sort of kickoff Rand there, and then a little orange accent, which I'm a sucker for that.
Yes. So we got that little orange accent, and then you notice on the back of that boot as well, it has 2 little black nylon loops.
Yeah.
Right there. And that's so you can actually run our gaiters without having a strap going underneath the foot. So we have a gaiter that integrates directly into that boot and a few of our other models that makes it so you just strap in to the back of the gaiter on those 2 little loops, and then you can hook into the front on the top of the lace, and you can run that boot with a strapless gaiter. So it's pretty unique. We have 2 different gaiters now. We have a short gaiter called the Corto. That's more for early season, mostly just keeping dirt, debris out of the gaiter while being extremely quiet. Then we have the Alto gaiter, which is going to be our tall, 100% waterproof membrane gaiter. It's more for snow, creek crossings, or a lot of people are wearing it kind of instead of brush pants because it's a lot more comfortable than maybe wearing a really thick brush pant or chaps. And you're still going to have that durability aspect of it, and it's sometimes easier to go through a pair of $125 or $130 gaiters in a season than it is to go through a couple $100 pair of pants.
Right. Yep, that's another thing that I know I've brought them up on the show before over the last couple of years. Never really considered wearing gaiters, but then it's the story. What really was, I liked wearing my Crispis so much, my Laponias, that I was like, well, if I'm gonna run if it's as soon as we get some snow, right, then you got a little different consideration where normally I would go to the rubber boot just to seal out everything, but I have a pair of First Light gaiters, and I gave those a try, and really like that. I like wearing the gaiters. You get a full kind of waterproofing element block. It's a nice way to go for those later season days when you got 3-4 inches of snow on the ground or more, obviously. But if you get that wet snow and everything's going to get wet, a nice gaiter really improves the experience in the field in my experience.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially here in Utah, or some days just to get to like a south facing slope, we may need to walk through 1.5 to 2 feet of snow. So
Yep.
to keep your feet dry going through there and your legs dry, it makes a world of difference, especially when it's 25, 30 degrees out.
Yeah. And I think that's maybe one of the things a lot of times people, if you get wet feet, you think, well, the moisture's getting into my boot somehow, but I think oftentimes it's actually coming down from the top, right? Like your socks or your pants get wet, and then that moisture is going down into the boot.
Absolutely. That's what happens. I would probably say 80% of the time of people calling saying that their boots are leaking. My first question always is, were you wearing a pair of gaiters? And most of the time they're like, no. They were just walking through a wet field, and they're like, my pants weren't wet, but a lot of the times it can just moisture wick straight into the sock, and that sock is just going to use gravity and pull that moisture down, and makes it feel like that moisture is coming in straight from the toe box, or just from the exterior of the boot, when in all reality it's just coming from a big hole in the top.
Yeah. Yep. I think on some of those late season snowy days, really when you got wet snow and you're walking and you're kicking that stuff up and it's getting on the back of your legs, that kind of thing, wearing gaiters on days like that have allowed me to come to the realization where that moisture was really coming from, because I feel like my feet stay a lot more dry on those days when I'm wearing those gaiters. So that's been a good experience for me as well. Cool to see the direct integration there in the Upland boot. Anything else we need to know about the Upland boot? So you guys really designed this thing. It's not specifically for the Western hunter. It's meant to be sort of an all-around Upland boot, kind of your go-to if you're just approaching the Crispi line as a bird hunter, wondering, hey, are these a solution for me? That's the one you would point people to.
Absolutely. Yeah, kind of no matter what you're chasing upland, whether it's grouse, woodcock, pheasants, prairie chickens, Sharpies, Huns, maybe not chuckers. I prefer a little stiffer boot if I'm chasing chuckers, but it can absolutely get the job done chasing chuckers.
Right.
But it's really and truly the best all-around upland hunting boot ever to be made.
Especially with your experience being out west, let's cater to the chucker hunter a little bit. What boots are you looking at if you are getting into some more serious elevation, serious terrain? What are you going to look for in the Crispi line?
So for me personally, I like a little bit more of like that mountaineering style boot. I like something that's going to be really stiff. I actually wear the boot called the Bricksaw Pro SF, which is a 5 flex rating. Just because
so that's all the way up, right?
Yeah, that's as stiff as you can get. It's like wearing 2x4s on your feet, and I love that boot for chasing chuckers, just because we end up in some technical, gnarly terrain. It's extremely rocky, and I just like having that support underneath my foot, because sometimes we're doing 14, 15-mile days and doing 5,000 to 7,000 feet of elevation gain. So it's really nasty terrain. So I just really like to have that extra platform underneath my foot. That boot's also equipped with that ankle bone support system, which I don't think I need when I'm more on the prairie or the Huns up in Idaho or Nevada, but I do think I need it up in the Chucker Hills.
What about the shimmick one? That's like, I know I talked to you about this at Pheasant Fest 2 years ago, and you kind of had my attention because it's basically the Laponia, but it's a leather boot and it's insulated. But again, I just don't find a need for a lot of insulation in my pursuits.
That's kind of why we kept that Upland Pro non-insulated.
Yeah.
Is because most Upland guys, because they're on their feet for so long, that they don't really need insulation. Just because you're so active, your feet don't typically get cold. But there's a few times in North South Dakota, even northern Montana, where you're gonna have sub-freezing temperatures, or sub-zero temperatures, and even though you may be walking, you still might need an insulated boot. And that's where that shimmick kind of came into play. Is it's designed for more of that Midwest hunter, where it can get extremely cold, or you might even go sitting in a tree stand for 6-8 hours at a time, but you want something that's still gonna be lightweight, it's still gonna be flexible. So that's kind of where that shimmick comes into play.
Yeah, when I think of insulated boots, I usually think of the pheasant hunter, which I don't tend to do a lot of that, but I think late season pheasant hunting, that's where, you're sub 20 degrees, that kind of thing. That's where you might need insulation. But if it's that cold, I usually am not going out into the grouse woods. We'll probably have a foot of snow, that kind of thing. So For me, it's not as much of a priority, but that's what. When do you throw on an insulated boot, if ever?
So that Brickstall Pro SF that I wear is 200 grams of insulation, so it's a pretty light insulation. And I usually throw that boot on probably mid to late November. As soon as we kind of start to get some snow here in Utah is when I transfer over to that boot. Another, while we're on the topic, really good Western boot is the Nevada. I think we talked about it a little bit earlier. I have a couple buddies, Alan Rasmussen and Derek Allen. They're some of the most hardcore chucker hunters I know. They're almost double my age, and they do double the miles that I do. They're absolutely nuts, and those guys swear by that Nevada. They've worn it in basically every state that has chuckers. They've been there, and they're wearing that boot, and it's just an extremely versatile boot for anyone who's looking for something that they can do just about anything in. That's when I'd recommend that Nevada.
Yeah. I don't own a pair of those, haven't tried them, but I remember my first Western hunt ever. This is going back a few years. I was with Matt Seidel from Onyx Hunt, and he was wearing those Nevadas, and he was like, and I didn't know a Crispi boot from a anything at that point, but I was like, oh, those are kind of interesting. And he was a big fan at that point, so those have been around for a while. What about the Guide GTX? Is that still a big boot for you?
Yep, absolutely. So that Guide and the Nevada are essentially the exact same boot.
That's what I thought.
Yep. The only
Guide is taller.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. That's the only difference between those two models.
Okay. What flex rating are those?
Those are 3 flex.
3. Okay. So kind of a step up from the Laponias.
Yep.
All right. So yeah, we talked waterproof, breathable, leather versus synthetic. Just to hammer home, the leather versus synthetic's a little bit lighter weight, more breathable, leather more durable. What's the difference there?
Yep, so synthetic is typically a little bit on the lighter weight side and quite a bit more breathable, whereas most of your leather, you get a little bit more durability, but it is going to be a little bit heavier and not quite as breathable. Those are kind of the key differences there between those two models.
Yeah, and then just because I'm aware of this, again, I don't think it's really significant for upland hunters, but the polyurethane Rand versus the full rubber Rand. Polyurethane, I believe, is used on Laponia, a little lighter, a little less durable than the full rubber, but what's the difference there?
Yeah, so that polyurethane coated leather Rand is going to be a stitched on Rand. Whereas the rubber Rand is just a glued on Rand.
Okay.
Yep. So that polyurethane coated leather is going to be a touch lighter weight, and you get a little bit more flexibility out of it as well. That's kind of one of the key features. Both of them are just there to protect the upper, but you can get a little bit more flex out of the PU coated leather Rand compared to the rubber Rand. It kind of stiffens up that upper portion of the boot a little bit.
Got it.
Yeah. So that's why on that Laponia we went with the leather coated Rand because we want it to be a little bit more flexible and a little bit stealthier of a boot.
Yeah. So and again the full rubber is for really the toughest rugged terrain, probably more Western focus, where you really need that durability from rock and jagged stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. What about the Ativas? Do you ever wear those? Because those I always think like, man, September sharptail hunt, that's like a sneaker basically.
Last year, I think for a day, I did wear that Ativa mid out on a Sharpie hunt. We were up in Montana for the 1st of September for the opener, and one of the days I did wear that boot. I like it a little bit more for training. The one thing I will say about that boot is if you ever do wear it in the field, make sure you're wearing a pair of short gaiters with it, just because the way that boot's designed, and it's so low that you can get a lot of stuff, dirt and debris in that boot. So it's actually super comfortable, super lightweight, really breathable. It's kind of my everyday go-to summer boot. I'm surprised I'm not wearing them today, but we're going on a little photo shoot later for some 2026 model stuff. Going to set some trail cameras for one of our guys here in the office with an antelope hunt, so we're pretty excited about that. But yeah, normally every day in the office I'm wearing that Ativa or Ativa mid just because they're so comfortable, they're so breathable. You still have that support underneath the footbed. That's also my go-to for training dogs. I mean, because sometimes training dogs, you may do 2, 3, even 4 miles just training dogs. Yeah. And just to have that support while you're training really, really, really helps.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that, but it's if I needed an excuse to buy one, that for summer hiking, doing my rucks, whatever, running the dogs, that kind of thing, that would be a good one. But I feel like if I had a pair of Ativas, they would definitely be going in the truck on that September Sharptail hunt, because when you're going to get a warm, dry day, I think they would be nice to put on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They're an
Yeah.
extremely comfortable shoe / boot.
Now, do those also have the full footboard thing?
Yep. So every single Crispi model out there will have the full board last in it.
Okay. And then are the Ativas like a 1 flex then?
Yep. The Ativa lows are 1 flex. The Ativa mids are a 2.
2. Okay. All right. Interesting. Yeah, I've seen people wear those around, honestly, wear them at like trade shows and stuff. My buddy Jerry's got a pair of those and he wears them around camp and stuff. But, okay, let's talk. How about fit? Somebody that's never worn a Crispi boot, how do you talk them through sizing and fit?
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the trickiest things. I mean, I try to do it on the phone basically all day long, is going to talk people through how a boot's supposed to fit. And a lot of it comes down to personal preference. Some people really like their boots to fit just a little bit loose. In the toe box area specifically, they like their feet to not have anything touching them. They like it to naturally display. And then there's also people like myself where I like my boot to fit like a glove. I don't want it moving in there. I want it to be super snug. I just want about a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch in the front of the boot, just to where I'm going down steep declines to where my toe is not going to be jamming into the front. But I like it a little bit more technical fitting, just because when we're side hilling, when we're putting on stocks, or I just feel a lot more secure in a tighter boot. One of the rules of thumb that I recommend to people is completely unlace the boots, slide your foot to the very front of the boot to where it's just barely touching the front, and then reach your hand behind your heel and try to judge how much room you have between the back of the heel and the back of the boot. And you typically want about a finger's width, which is usually about a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch. Yeah. And that's kind of my best rule of thumb for most people, making sure they have the correct fit. But like I said, it kind of comes down to personal preference, and somebody in the Midwest may be completely different than somebody here in Utah, where the terrain is completely different and maybe they want a little bit more room. One thing that can help with fitment, like some people are getting heel slip, and that's typically because of a boot that's a little bit too big. And one way you can combat that is by adding a little bit thicker of an insole. We sell a couple on our website that I really like called sole insoles. That's kind of what I run in all my boots. They're relatively cheap. I think they're like $50 or $55, and they're heat moldable, so you can stick them in the oven for 2 minutes at 200 degrees and slip them in your boots, tighten them up, go for a walk, and actually form fit to your feet. A lot of people like super feet as well. I personally don't run those ones, but tons of people absolutely love them. And then socks. Socks are very, very key, kind of no matter what you're hunting. I recommend them more for fitment rather than added insulation. A lot of people go to a thicker sock because they think it's going to have warmer feet, but sometimes it can actually do the complete opposite and cut off more circulation to where you're not getting good blood flow down to the footbed, and you're actually getting colder feet from that. But for what I want, like I have certain boots that I can only wear our Uinta sock, which is our full cushion mid-calf sock, and I have other boots, like the ones I'm currently wearing, that I wear the Ridge sock, which is just an extremely lightweight targeted cushion merino wool sock. Okay. And just making sure that you have that merino wool sock will also make a significant difference in fit and just function overall, because the moisture wicking has a huge thing to do with blisters and hot spots. Yeah. When I first started working at Crispi, I was just wearing normal cotton stance socks. I thought nothing of it, and I came into work one day. I'm like, man, I don't know why I'm getting these blisters, and told John, was one of the guys who works in the office as well, and he just basically gave me the ringer for about 5-10 minutes straight about why I shouldn't be wearing cotton socks. And ever since then, I've never worn cotton socks again with boots, and haven't had any blisters, and made sure the fit was proper on my boot, and I've been good to go.
Yep. That is a lesson that I suspect most people have learned at some point. If you haven't, and you are still wearing cotton socks, definitely would experiment a little bit. Try some merino wool. Do you pretty much always wear wool? Do you have synthetic socks as well?
I pretty much always wear wool. I mean, it's what's worked really well for me, kind of no matter what the temperature range is. So I'm basically just a wool guy myself. I've heard a lot of people really like the alpaca socks. That's kind of the new thing that people just absolutely love.
What makes those? What are they? Synthetic something?
Nope, they're just alpaca wool instead of merino wool. So just alpaca, the animals, and I guess that they're a little bit more moisture wicking from what I hear. Another really big sock is bison wool. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they're not as popular, but a lot of people hunting really cold temperatures go to that bison wool. I think it's like 6 times more insulating than merino and like 5 times more moisture wicking. So a lot of people have been wearing those socks just because they are a little bit warmer.
How do they compare thickness wise? Like, is it generally a thicker sock or not as
I
thick?
think that they have just about everything. They have anywhere from like thin targeted cushion all the way up to really, really thick socks as well.
Interesting. I had not heard of that. I wear synthetic socks a lot. I just have some cheap synthetic socks that are sort of over the calf. They fit well. They do the job. They dry out extremely fast and they work. But when it gets later in the season and I feel like I need to put a little bit more priority on making sure I've got the right sock, I usually go to I think I've got a darn tough merino wool that I wear pretty regularly. So yeah, you can do a lot with socks. And I'm forgetting now, but just in case it's helpful to anybody, I think my Crispi boots, I'm pretty much an always 10.5 size boot. And I'm pretty sure I wear a size 10 in the Laponias. So not to say that they fit small, but that's what worked for me. I might have even tried 10.5 and 10s and just said I can get into these 10s and lace them up nicely, and they work for me. But what do you recommend for somebody that's like, okay, they could go to Shields and try them on. Can you order from Black Ovis and return a couple pairs, that kind of thing? What do you recommend?
Yep, absolutely. That's the best case scenarios if you can order a couple pairs, but it is pretty big price gouge right off the bat to order 2-3 pairs of boots. Even though you're sending them back and getting your money back, it is still a little bit spendy. But typically all of our boots run very true to size. I'm an 11.5 in all my Nikes, Hokas, Adidas, and I'm basically an 11.5 in all my boots except for the Ativa Mid. The Ativa Mid does run a little bit long. I'm only an 11 in that one. But if you have any questions, if anyone has any questions about fit or what the boot's gonna fit like, just give us a call at Crispi, and somebody's gonna answer the phone right away. You're not gonna get a voicemail box or a robot. It's gonna be somebody picking up the phone, and it's probably gonna be within the first 2 or 3 rings.
Yeah. Okay. Good deal. Or they can come see you at Pheasant Fest next fall too.
Yep, absolutely.
You guys got any other shows or things coming up for you guys this summer?
Just this summer we have 2 Total Archery Challenge events.
Okay.
We have one in Purgatory, Colorado this weekend, and we have Utah Total Archery Challenge coming up next weekend. And I think that should be it as far as this season goes. We try to cancel out everything as far as from September on. Most of us here in the office are pretty busy that time of year. It gets a little hectic with people in the office and people not in the office.
Yeah.
Just from everything from whitetail or mule deer to elk to birds and everything in between.
Yeah. Just off the top of my head, Shields is probably one of the major retailers that maybe a lot of people listening could go see them. Any other like physical store locations that
so Shields is always a good one. They got really good people to go talk to. We also have Sportsman's Warehouse. They're a really good retailer for us, and we actually have quite a few just independent stores just all across America now. Kind of no matter where you are, we probably have a store in your state relatively close. So
do you have a dealer locator that people can check? Okay.
Yep. So we have a dealer locator right on our website.
Okay.
It's very accurate. So hopefully you can get on there and find a shop close to you, because that's absolutely the best thing you can do is go talk with somebody who knows our product and can get you fitted personally. But if you can't, ordering from Crispi and ordering a few pairs of boots, or ordering one pair and just sending them back, just making sure they don't wear them outside, and we'll always get them taken care of.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I can't let you go. We got to talk just briefly break-in and maintenance. So break-in period. Somebody says, hey, do the boots require a break-in period? What's your process? What do you tell them?
Yeah, so that is one thing that is extremely unique with Crispi, is there's not really a break-in period. And if there is, it's about 15, 20 miles for some people. And I think that it's more of a fit thing. just getting those boots to fit you properly. But I think if the boot fits you properly and you know what you like in a boot, you can take that boot basically out of the box and go hunt. I mean, those Brickstall Pro SFs, I took them out of the box at the truck, and we did 14.7 miles and 7,200 vertical feet, and my feet were completely fine. The whole rest of my body was hurting a little bit, but my feet were doing good.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. And that's, I think when I got my Laponias, I think I wore them trail hiking a little bit before my first trip of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went on my first hunting trip, and after the first day, I was getting like a little bit of a hot spot on one part of the boot. So I switched to my other boots the next day. And then I just alternated for like a week for that trip. And then from then on, I've just been rocking them, but it didn't feel like there was a real extensive break-in period or anything like that. But.
Yeah, that's one nice thing about having board lasted boots is the Italians call it InstaFit. We don't think that makes sense here, but that's one thing that they're very proud of over there is having that InstaFit and basically no break-in period because the out-of-the-box comfort.
Yeah. Okay. Maintenance. What's just best practices, and then any kind of products, wax, that kind of thing?
So all boots are good to go right out of the box. They do come pre-treated from the factory. Once you get about 15 to 20 miles on those, what I'd first recommend conditioning those boots. For all of your leather boots, you're going to want to use our Crispi waterproofing cream. And for all of our synthetic boots, you're going to want to use the Crispi waterproofing spray. If you have a hybrid synthetic leather, then you're going to want to use both. You're going to use the cream on the leather and the spray on all the synthetic portions of those boots. I typically try to condition my boots more often than not, especially on my leather boots. Just because like some days I may go out on a 2-day chucker hunt, but I'm in mud, just grimy snow, and it's going to take that moisture out of the leather. And just by maintaining those, just scrubbing off the dirt and throwing a layer of cream on there, it's going to really help the longevity of those boots. So I would always recommend doing it a little bit more often than not. The one thing I would steer people away from as far as leather boots is make sure you don't put on mink oil, beeswax, anything like that, because that's actually going to clog the pores and basically make it so it's not going to be breathable anymore. There's a Gore Tex membrane in there that's trying to push out that moisture, and it can't push it out through the leather because it's all the pores in the leather are clogged. So we try to steer people away from that. I would either use our Crispi waterproofing cream or Nick wax. Steer people away from Obanoffs that can make the glue on the rubber Rands come apart. So just steer clear of those. Stick with Nick wax or Crispi waterproofing cream for all the leather boots.
Yeah. That's good to know, because you see a lot of Obanoffs and Snow Seal and that kind of stuff. I think I've been using the Nick wax on my Laponias, and like you said, that's probably something like you probably can't do it too much. Like, ideal, you could condition them after every hunt, but we're probably not going to do that. I don't do it a ton, but I do it and try to delace them and scrub all the debris and dirt out of there and put a nice coating on there. That helps.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, buddy. So what boots are you going to be wearing upland hunting this fall?
I'm absolutely going to be wearing that Upland Pro. And I think I might change it up this year to the Alpine Pro SF for my chucker boot. I'm going to go try to do that or whirl. I'll probably still have the Brickstall Pros in my back pocket for my chucker hunts just because, I don't know, I love that boot. And then I am testing a few samples for 2026, making sure those are running good. So we'll be running about 4 boots this year, testing all of them and making sure they're good. But that Upland Pro, it's stellar. I know I'll be wearing that boot for 1st of September when I go up there chasing Sharpies and hunts for the opener.
Very cool. What's your favorite upland bird to hunt, if you have one?
It's chuckers, hands down. Yeah, the way that they hold, the country that they're in, it's watching the dogs work on them. I don't think there's anything cooler out there.
Yeah. Do you have bird dogs?
Yes. Yep,
Okay.
I have a German short hair out
Okay.
of Mississippi, and then I have a German wire hair as well.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun to watch them. My little wire hair, she thinks she's human now. She comes fishing with us every weekend and rides in the boat. She was riding in the cab of the truck the other day, and she thought that was the coolest thing in the world because usually she's just back in the Lucky Ducks.
I love it. All right. The upland boots are available now. People can find them anywhere pretty much, and we're counting the days till September 1st, my friend.
Absolutely.
Where should folks go if they want to learn more about Crispi boots?
Honestly, we just revamped our website. It's got a lot of really good information. You could always call us. We can give you the best information we can give you. And Also seeing your retailers, your local retailers in particular, whether it's a Shields or your independent dealer that's close to your house, I would always go see them. They're going to be extremely helpful. They're very, very knowledgeable. We're very particular about who we open as dealers. So we do that for a reason, just so you have experience in the stores and you have a great customer experience.
Excellent. All right, buddy. Well, thank you for taking some time to chat with us on the Birdshot Podcast today. I really appreciate it. Keep up the great work and wish you the best of luck this fall, buddy.
Absolutely. You as well. Thank you so much for having us on.
All right. Thanks, Lars. Hey, everyone. It's your host, Nick here. One more thing before you go. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Birdshot Podcast presented by Onyx Hunt. Be sure to subscribe and follow the show so you don't miss our next episode. And if you really love the show and want to contribute above and beyond what you already do by listening, you can do so by joining our Patreon community. Click the link in the show notes to this episode. You can sign up for as little as $5 a month. And if you do, I will send you some of these Birdshot Podcast can coolers and stickers as a thank you for doing so. Thanks, everyone. Catch you on the next episode of the Birdshot Podcast.